Girls of Reddit, what's the hardest part of being a girl? Time of the month. But the thing is, if we don't get one, then we would probably think, oh crap, am I pregnant? We just can't win. And no, we can't hold it in like urine, it just blobs out. It just blobs out is the most accurate description I've heard about how a period feels. I get annoyed with the freaking part sometimes. I feel like my body is so stupidly complicated at times with what it likes and wants in order to reach orgasm. I wish the tea was as consistent and simple as dongs. Every man ever just agreed with you 1000%. When you pee and the outer labius gets in the way, and you end up having like 3 different streams of pee, and one of them ends up being just the right angle to drip on the outside of the toilet. Periods, especially if you have really bad cramps. I have endometriosis and it causes horrifyingly painful cramps. I swear some nights I wanted to throw up from how much it was hurting. And we get them every month. What a ripoff. I mean, before I have time to forget the last period, here is the next meltdown on its way, followed by uterine warfare for 2-3 days. I am a computer science major. I build PCs, program, do game dev, all kinds of stuff. I also used to be on a first robotics team. Basically, I know my way around tech. Every single time I go into a Fry's or Micro Center with any male person, even if they do not speak or show any interest in what is going on, employees talk to them. As in, I ask a question, the employee answers to my male friend. So annoying. Cramps, non-existent pockets, more expectations for looks, being thought of as overdramatic and weak, and my mom complaining because I'm a tomboy, and that I should like things I don't like because all girls like shopping in this type of clothes and that type of shoes and makeup. I'm not trying to be quirky and not like other girls or anything, it's just not my thing, and I don't bash on or not understand anyone who does like those things. I just hate having it all attempted to be forced on me just because I'm female. If you are a super girly girl and you like makeup and fashion and the like, you are called shallow and high maintenance. If you don't like traditionally feminine things, you're trying too hard to be quirky. You can't win. Being expected to nicely laugh off pervs who won't stop hitting on you. I'm not a buzzkill. Some dude sees me out with the girls, doesn't notice the wedding ring and chats me up. Either work my husband into the convo, or if he's being more direct, sorry I'm taken. No harm, no foul, but leaning in and telling me about how naughty in bed he thinks I am, all the things he wants to do to me etc. Then I'm the bad guy for telling him he's disrespectful. Being expected to nicely laugh off pervs who won't stop hitting on you. Used to be a server, worst part was no tip if you didn't tolerate it. Sure, my place had my back for the most part, but they didn't compensate us if they had to kick out one that went way overboard. Lack of upper arm strength. This is so true. I'm 6 feet 3 inches and have more than once been told I look like I could kick a guy's butt, but I have 2 older brothers, and I know from experience that if a guy wants to beat the crap out of me, he most likely can. The fact that my sweatshirt cost as much as my male roommates, but is like 4 times thinner. What the frick? Having to be overly cautious when walking alone, even when walking in my complex parking lot. Sometimes I wish I could go for a run at night or walk in the city. Yeah, periods are inconvenient and small pockets are annoying, but the worst part of being a girl is the constant vigilance we're required to have. I'm never not thinking about how to protect myself from being abducted, violated, and or murdered when I'm out in public alone. Literally not being able to have a friend that's a guy without people thinking we're dating. It's even worse because I'm gay and a lot of the time guys will just be like, but you just haven't met the right one. I'll tell my friends about a funny thing my guy friend did and later they'll bring him up as that guy you have a thing for just because I've mentioned him once. It's so annoying. Being dismissed as emotional or dramatic when you are genuinely going through a hard time or want to speak out about something. Doesn't matter whether we've actually shown emotion or not. All that's needed is for someone to assume we ought to be upset. Then they dismiss whatever points we're really making and waste everyone's time with faux reassurances. I think the excess attention bestowed upon my body just as it was developing. I received more comments and was touched and harassed by boys my age who didn't know any better. Like, we aren't 7 or 8 anymore, it's not okay to wrestle with me and be aggressive just so you can grab my body parts in an unassuming manner. The straight up comments about how large my chest was when half the other girls barely had A cups. It was a lot to deal with when for all of my life that was a non-issue. I had to accept these changes, and then others used these changes to either hurt me emotionally or take advantage of me. It made me wear bigger clothes to hide my body, but I was already chunky and my mom seemed to not understand I wasn't going to fit into smaller sizes just because she did. Also, my mom refused to spend the money on proper bras for my sister and I until she was embarrassed by a family member for not taking her chesty daughters to get proper bras. We were wearing sports bras much longer than we should have been for how large our chests were. D+ cups. My mum wouldn't take us to be measured or to shop for bras with her, so just guesstimated the size. Often unused second-hand bras that were all stretched out. Pay classes were a nightmare. I haven't had a kid, but having seen my friends go through pregnancy and childbirth, yeah, I'm gonna say having a kid. 9 months of carrying a baby around while it leeches off your body and your hormones go crazy. Then, unless you're one of the lucky ones with an easy birth, you go into the hospital and tear yourself apart pushing a baby out to the point you have to wear diaper-sized pads, and the weeks following as all the afterbirth finishes clearing itself out of your system. And this is happening while you are caring for your newborn and dealing with things like breastfeeding. Plus you get postpartum hormones while you're surrounded by well-meaning friends and family members that will give you unwanted care tips, as well as making you feel like you're not a good mother because you may not have immediately bonded with your kid, etc. Like, dang man. And in all these centuries of scientific progress, they have come up with decent ways to make giving birth easier, like epidurals. But the same basic concept of pregnancy and having the baby is the same as it was centuries or even thousands of years ago. I've heard being a woman makes it more difficult to be a fan of anything considered a boy's man's hobby. Basically, if you're a fan of video games, comics, or cars, then you'll experience a bunch of gatekeeping attitudes from the guys also in those worlds. How much have you experienced that? The frustration of balancing being assertive with not being that bee in the workplace. I want my ideas heard. I want to be respected. I want to be considered fairly for promotions and leadership positions. But if I do twice as much work as my male co-workers, I get half the credit, and if I point out my accomplishments, I have to soften them, or else I'm being a bragging bee while my male co-workers can take unabashed credit for their accomplishments all day. The fact is that men can take up space and own their confidence and accomplishments in a way that women will be punished for. It's incredibly frustrating to try to succeed professionally when the person in charge of promotions gives me the side eye for talking about this new thing I did, and they just smile and nod when a man does the same thing. You walk into a clothing store and spot a nice jumper. It's woolen, very fluffy, looks comfy, bam, it's a crop top. Why is everything cropped? Why? Who the frick wears crop tops in winters? If it's not a crop top, then there are usually some stupid trendy cuts on it. Why the frick does it have no fabric to cover my shoulders but has long frilly sleeves with pearls on it? What kind of goddamn clothing is that? People being immediately dismissive of your ability to doing something simply because of your genitals. I once had someone tell me I shouldn't be putting together a desk I purchased. They said I should let my BF do it. Also, the price of feminine hygiene products. My mom is the worst offender for this. Not the men in my life, but my mom is the one who constantly reminds me that you need to watch what you wear and don't dress too provocative, and that working with power tools isn't something I should do alone. I'm 35. Having you on your period be used as reason to dismiss all of my feelings, and generally being talked down to by a lot of guys. Yes, in middle school, my dad was terminally ill and I was, of course, having a hard time. Apparently my boyfriend of the time decided it was a good idea to discuss this with my male best friend at soccer practice, and they both decided I must be moody because I'm on my period. So dismissive. Everyone else already mentioned the obvious period cramps, but I'll add people thinking it's okay to touch you without your permission. And if you state your boundaries and say please don't touch me, people will think you're bi. Because women and girls are trained to be nice, and standing up for yourself goes against that. Yeah, my mill was tickling me for some reason and I had to get full on angry to get her to stop. Then I was the bad guy. I'm 30 years old, I don't like being touched, and you need to learn boundaries. When I get pregnant I think I'm going to have to stay in a monastery or something. Weight fluctuation. Yes, thanks, hormones. Never being taken seriously. Not with how I feel, not my pain, none of it. Everything I do there must first be a fight to be taken seriously. Painful boobs. Having people, especially older men, believe what you say take you seriously. Perhaps not all girls, but a lot of little and teenage girls don't get taken seriously. Every time we try to express what we're feeling, our interests, opinions, etc., it gets downplayed, brushed aside, or ignored. Especially if you're a girly girl. Sometimes you internalize that what you have to say is not important and don't speak up often or over-explain yourself, and sometimes you turn into a really defensive person, and either way you get socially penalized. It takes a lot to unlearn second-guessing everything you think and say. The guilt and pressure of living in a society that overwhelmingly requires a two-income household to support a family but places the vast majority of childcare and household demands on the woman's shoulders. Oh, and we're taught from a young age to be pretty and polite and don't complain too much, to the extent that we will put ourselves in harm's way despite our better judgment for fear of coming off as impolite. Frick that. And not being employed for a job because you're of childbearing age and companies don't want to deal with maternity leave, regardless of whether you already have or even want kids. Partners, without twats, who don't understand that tea can hurt while fricking, especially if you're under-roused. Generally, not being seen as all the way human, it often gets discussed the feeling of being dehumanized through objectification and the dangers of creeps, but it hardly ever is discussed the disrespect that men feel like they can allocate to you if they don't find you attractive. I'm talking in work settings, in friend groups. I can't tell you how many times that happened where a guy went out of his way to let me know my appearance wasn't up to his standards in some way when I wasn't even attempting to engage him in any way, let alone flirt. But it's so much more than snide comments. It's being shown that your ideas, your friendship, everything you have to offer is ultimately useless, and that you are not worthy of being seen or heard in any capacity if you don't look right. I've experienced both ends of the spectrum of being conventionally attractive and not so conventionally attractive, and both versions suck. Professionally, being spoken over and it being assumed I'm not the one with the power in the room. The guy sitting next to me is my employee, not the other way around. I am also not the assistant receptionist record keeper of my company. I am the big boss lady and I deserve to be treated as such. Personally, finding a great bra that isn't super $sign. Being friendly to a guy and having it taken as romantic or physical interest. Not being able to walk around alone without fearing for my safety. Wanting to look masculine tomboyish but you can't because you have a big butt. Man with some junk in his trunk here. Can confirm. Have been called cute. Never manly. Our emotions are regularly used against us, invalidating our points or say in a matter. They are also heavily judged as well. Our concern in how something affects us is often not a concern. For example, if one didn't mean to offend, I am in the wrong for being offended. Or should pay little mind as I'm just being emotional. If you're curvy, definitely the hardest part is finding clothes that fit perfectly. Most of them are too big or too small, or they don't fit your thighs but fit your waist, things like that. I have given up and just wear dresses now. It's like they assume your waist is going to be the same width as that point where your butt and hips make themselves known. Also, I didn't get boobs until my mid-20s. So it used to be that shirt hung weirdly. Now I have to wear a turtleneck if I want to hide the cleavage. There is no winning. Why are women's clothing so tight-fitted and also the non-existent pockets and pants? Da fuck. Everything about women's clothing is weird. They are cute and make you feel good, but you have to search so much, because they are thinner cloth, not durable, don't come with pockets, all the good ones don't have to fit you. Da fuck score. Being called a girl when you're 30-year-old grown woman. People immediately thinking you're stupid. Have had so many customers at different jobs throughout the years act like I have no idea what I'm talking about and ask a male coworker, who usually ends up shrugging their shoulders and asking me because they're either new or I was their supervisor. Petty satisfaction, not going to lie. If you're a woman who doesn't want kids, you just haven't realized your biological clock is ticking. You'll change your mind, and my favorite, you're incredibly selfish. You're obligated to have them because your parents raised you. There's also the fact it's almost impossible for us to get a tubal ligation unless we've already had 2 or more kids, because you'll change your mind, or we hear we can't do this without your boyfriend's husband's consent. Basically anything that involves taking control of our own bodies because of some societal BS. Trying to explain about how some parts of our lives are tough because of our gender and then being told, well, what about this tough part about being a male? So this entire thread. Having to justify why we're terrified of walking alone or going for a run by ourselves. I've already read a comment where the woman had to give specific examples of her feeling unsafe and people she knows in unsafe positions. Is it not enough to be sacred that we now have to write an essay for you on why we might feel that way? I'm sick of that homeless guy is harmless because literally everyone is harmless until they're not. So if a girl asks you to walk her to her car because she's scared, don't be a dong and do that small favor so that she can feel safe. If a girl asks you to watch her drink, actually watch it and make sure no one messes with it. Assume that she has good reasons to be scared and don't make her feel bad because of it. The woman had to give specific examples of her feeling unsafe and people she knows in unsafe positions. And most of the replies to those comments tell us to just carry a gun. Maybe I don't want to have to potentially shoot someone while out for a run. Dude. Maybe I just want to be safe without threatening others with violence. Oh well, I just had to change careers because all my jobs interviews were pretty crappy all due to the area and me being a woman. One time this guy, HR, just asked me if my favorite hobby was to sew or cooking. Maybe it's just my country, but oh god I wish I'd graduated in butt kicking just to have a license to beat the heck out of these guys. Period. I work in tech and like gaming. I go from being completely ignored at work to being told that my corpse is going to get violated. So that's there. The first thing people think about for female is beauty, not intelligence, not bravery, not power. Outward beauty, one of the most subjective, fleeting and hard to achieve things a person could strive for. You can have a PhD, you could be a veteran, you could be president and have those things basically permanently. But beauty is something someone can disagree with, and it fades quickly, especially if you are only beautiful because of added makeup, nice hairdo, or a well-fitted dress. We honestly can't stop blood coming out when it's time for it to happen. It's not like having to hold urine in your body. Having big boobs, some men and women who are interested in women will stare and compliment how big my boobs are and will try to freaking grab them, and the same thing with asses. I didn't want and still don't want big boobs and a big butt. The Dementors. Oh thank god, I thought I was the only one. Cramps. Feels like someone is trying to chainsaw their way out of your body.